the shege that life has shown us has helped us, you know.
Yeah. Oh, look at this person. She's representing Nigeria.
How you both have navigated keeping that friendship.
Debbie and I both grew up in Kaduna, the northern part of Nigeria.
I think that I see Moyo as a person rather than as...
Just hearing you tell that story really meant a lot to me.
But you tell it so beautifully, as though you were there.
Truly, if your work does resonate with one person, it's okay and it's enough and it's done something, right?
Do not make any sense.
Hi, and welcome to the All African Women Poetry Festival podcast. My name is Emma Ofosua, and we're having conversations with some amazing guests that have come through this year's edition of the festival. I will be speaking with Deborah Johnson and Moyosola Olowukure, and we'll get into a brief conversation. Do stay tuned in and leave your questions, comments below. Would love to interact with you. We'll be right back to have this conversation right after this break.
Tabon, actually in Fanti, means a paddle. So when I saw the name, I was really fascinated because it's time also to use our language and symbols to represent ourselves.
Hi and welcome back. So my guests for today are Deborah Johnson, a Nigerian poet, and Moyosola Olowukure, also a Nigerian poet. And I'm going to get into this conversation with them. Welcome ladies to the set today.
Thank you
for having. How are you doing?
We're good. I think I'm good.
Yeah, I'm also equally good.
Fantastic. Good to know. So we're going to jump right into the conversation, and I think for most of the part of it, we just want to get an experience of you, your journey in poetry, your inspirations, your interests. And so pretty much you, Moyosola, began writing at a very young age. I think your very first stint was with Purple Silver, actually, yeah. An open mic event. How did that turn you into this amazing poet that you are?
I think it was just realizing more than what was in my secondary school syllabus, right? So we had a lot. We had math, English, geography, and everything. And because of how much it was easy to fall into the trap of thinking that was all there was to master or to know in the world, or at that age anyway. And Miss Nabila Usman, invited some of my classmates and I to go and attend a Purple Silver poetry night. And this was after showing us a video of two poets doing this spoken word duet thing on YouTube, which I just found mind-blowing. And so we went for the open mic, and it was just very eye-opening, I think. I shared a piece for the first time in my life there. And while I can't even remember whether the piece itself was great, I just knew that sharing it felt really great. And I think that really birthed, the start of just understanding how important poetry is and all that can be done with it.
Right. You, Deborah, though, started fairly also at a very young age, and also in Nigeria. Has the scene, and I'm going to come back to the duet question because you both have done a duet piece, so I'm sure that inspiration has trickled down. But how has living in Nigeria, being a young girl growing in Nigeria, shaped your literary voice and your journey into poetry?
I think that I've never thought of it that way, in this isolated experience of you are writing from the perspective of a Nigerian girl. I think I've sort of always looked at it as writing from the perspective of a Nigerian. I think that, but now that I think of it, definitely I've written from the perspective of a Nigerian girl, because there are very, very, very micro, seemingly unimportant things that you go through, like walking on the road from as young as 13, and some men that are already not to give birth to you, telling you, fine girl, all that stuff. I feel like those have definitely come into play. So, yeah, I think that growing up in Nigeria has influenced a lot of my, growing up in Nigeria as a girl specifically, has definitely influenced a lot of my poetry and a lot of the things that I try to say or advocate for. Yes.
Moya, you do mention a teacher who took you to this Purple Silver event.
Yeah.
Who would you say, though, took you, Debbie, or brought you into that space of experiencing your first experience with poetry?
For me, it was my older sister. My older sister wrote books about prose when we were younger, and I just remember being very fascinated at that. But then the sister after her wrote poetry, and that was my first introduction into spoken word in itself. So yeah, it was very unintentional, but it kind of bled onto me, I guess.
So the good poets. You seem to have themes of faith running through your pieces.
Yeah.
How have audiences received this element of faith, especially in spaces that are not exactly faith inclined? How have you managed or navigated that platforming faith conversations on huge stages?
I love that question. I think that I have. I think that in terms of my faith, which is the Christian faith, I have never really held or had so many. I haven't really had any negative experiences sharing my work. I think when I'm in an audience that is, dominantly of another faith, right? I have maybe had my apprehensions, thoughts here and there, but I just always say that work should be honest. No matter what work you're writing, should be honest. And if there is a part of me that is so integral to my personality and so integral to who I am and how I show up in the world, and I don't share that, that does not bleed into my art. It would feel very hypocritical. It would feel very shady and inauthentic, I think. So I think in a nutshell, I don't really worry about it because I think everyone is telling their story and some people's stories are very, very different. But then in another way, I think that I find it hard to believe that there's anyone that isn't faith inclined, because there has to be some reason you're getting up in the morning. There has to be some reason you feel like your efforts are worth making or worth putting in. And you may not believe in the exact same thing that I do, but just the concept of belief is there. And I think belief in and of itself is a beautiful concept. And so I share that with my story, in my experience of the world, with my own belief system, right? And yeah, I think that's how I approach it.
And that's a very beautiful perspective, because then it comes down to the fact that, and you mentioned it so beautifully, everybody believes in something, even if it's a belief in self. Yeah. And so for you, that is faith. And either way, you are what you believe. And so it makes sense that it shines through. And I feel that that's very commendable.
Thank you.
So you, Deborah, though, happen to also talk about faith, but you talk also about race, colorism, girlhood. How have you been able to balance facts and historical accuracy with just the creative license of telling stories and being just creative?
For historical accuracy, I think that I like to research in pieces that have, even if it's something like going to find a Twitter link where somebody said this, I like to write from experience, and if I cannot find that experience, then I'd get a receipt. I get receipts, proof that, oh, this happened, so and so this can inspire this writing. I think that the things I speak about also are just things that matter to me. Really, the thing on tribalism and all of that, those are things I've experienced, those are things I've seen, things that I feel like do not make any sense. So I have to speak about it, because if it is in my head, if I am thinking about it, if it is forming the poem on its own, it is asking to be let out. So, yeah, that's how I see it.
And that kind of leans into your creative process then. It means you tend to do a wide cast search and then come into introspection and align it to your personal experiences. But have you been, how has that creative process also had you empathize with other people's experience? Or how do you step into other people's stories and make it come alive on stage?
So I think for the creative process of even writing anything is not necessarily always that, oh, I need to go and research and then start writing. Sometimes it is a random sentence that you had in your head from like 2 years ago and you wrote down somewhere. And in this context, it applies so well that you go back to the past and bring it out and then start writing all over again. And I think I'm a very big empath. I can absorb someone's pain or story to the point where I feel it physically. My chest will hurt. So I think that definitely plays into my writing as well, because if in that moment I am writing as though I were there, I were the person that it happened to, it makes it easier to tell that story, even if it is not originally mine.
And that is so true, how you say you are able to embody the story, so especially how you tell the story of Chibok. Obviously you weren't part of those girls that were captured, but you tell it so beautifully, as though you were there, as though you're actually one of them that got free. And so this is just to say it's beautiful how you capture the stories that you capture. And so for both of you though, and I'll start with The Good Poet, how have audiences reacted to the themes? That's Moyosola. I love The Good Poet piece. And so I guess it's really become my favorite.
I love it. I don't mind it.
You say it with so much passion and with so much understanding, and it comes through so clearly and so beautifully. But how have audiences that you have shared your different pieces with, touching on various themes, responded to your works? How have you felt after delivering what you feel will resonate so well with this audiences? Those kind of balances. Well, and if there are any particular reference stories that you'd love to share, I'd love to hear how those have been.
I think this is a very wide question, because like different audiences, different pieces, different moods of the poet, different moods of the audience, right? All come into play. I think that for me, my works, I think, have a way of bringing out what I would call like a childlike hope, I think, from people that listen to it. I think I like to remind people of basic forgotten truths about life, and just bring a refocusing on what matters most, or what I believe matters most. And I think it depends, really. It really depends, because there are some people that can find my writing a bit too deep and metaphoric and intricate, complex. And there are other people that really appreciate that style of writing. There are some people that, I've performed at events where, literally, everyone is pressing their phone, no one is listening, not connecting with anyone, or I feel like I'm not connecting with anyone. And I've performed at events where literally people that I didn't think would really appreciate it have come up to me and said, wow, I felt so touched by that story. Such and such also happened to me at this time. And just hearing you tell that story really meant a lot to me. So it's been very varied. And I think the fact that it's been very varied has kind of forced me to be okay with my work and myself regardless, right? And then I think just another thing is that when it comes to sharing a piece that is so dear to you and so intimate to you, it can be painful if it's not received in the way that you want it to, or if it's not received at all. And I was at an event and I was talking to Wana Odubang, also known as Miss Wana Wana. And she just said that whenever she's performing a piece or whenever she's presenting something, she does not try to beg the crowd to connect with her. It's more of like taking note of those people that are plugged in and then really focusing her attention on them, I think. And that made a lot of sense, I think, because I don't want to be that poet that, because there are 100 people in the room and only one person is listening, I'm now just not paying attention to that one person, right? Because truly, if your work does resonate with one person, it's okay and it's enough and it's done something, right? So yeah.
An audience of one.
Yeah, an audience of
An audience of one. 2022 though was an amazing year for
Oh,
you,
it was.
full of accomplishments, meeting all those right audiences. How would you say, or what would you say has contributed to that rapid growth? Because again, most people see you for the first time and they feel, oh, she just sprung up. But what has that journey been like, and what has contributed to that rapid growth, if we can call it that, and how did that make 2022 just stand out in that sense?
I love this question. I think that it has been a lot of self-discovery and a lot of just learning, like pure, what's the word? Pure learning, basically, that doesn't have any ill intent, I think, on my part, right? So just starting from just posting my videos on social media, just for the pure pleasure of expressing myself, to people inviting me to come for events, and, you know, just beginning to realize the spiritual nature of my work and the importance of it and the cruciality of it. And over time, just understanding more and more what my own voice sounds like in the midst of other voices, how I can be influenced by other poets but still remain me, and all of that. And I think that, in particular, the Ake Festival 2022, where the Good Poet was birthed, I was invited for that event at an open mic event that I went for that I almost didn't go for.
Wow.
And a friend dragged me there and said I must go for this open mic, and I went for it. I presented a piece, and Lola Shoneyin said I must be at the Ake Festival. And it's just been really, really based on people. Like, whenever people write songs, no offense, no shade, but whenever people write songs about nobody believed in me and, you know, all of that, I just find it so hard to believe, because I'm like, nobody believed in you, nobody, and somehow you're here, like, really, nobody. And I think for me, a lot of people believed in me, a lot of people believe in me, and they have put so much effort and time into making sure that I get to an event on time. My sister did my makeup for the Ake Festival. The dress I wore was gifted. Like, there were just so many elements that were just other people's genuine compassion and love and belief and support in me as a person and as an artist that contributed to my growth. And I also just believe that it was my time. Like, God said it was my time, and it was my time. And yeah, it's been a great journey, and I'm still on it.
That's beautiful.
Thank you.
And it's especially given and noticing that the credit or the support doesn't always have. I think particularly because most of the time people expect that help or support or belief should come a certain way. So when it does not come the way we think or imagine that it would, then it was not help at all.
Yeah.
For instance, if I needed you to fan fire and all you did was probably put the coal pot there, then you didn't help because it wasn't what I thought it was. But you are able to pinpoint, someone brought you a cloth to wear, someone made you up to go. You would have had to figure that out, and that was help. So I think finding the help and support in the various ways that they come and accepting them authentically, and that's eye-opening. That's eye-opening to put it that way. You have had some successes too, Deborah. You've had amazing stages to be on. You've won a couple of things. Leaning on to people and how the supporters, how has that played out for you?
So 2 days, I think yesterday, Titilabe was asking me if I was working on like an album or something. And I told her that, oh yeah, I was. But I've had it for like close to a year now. And I wake up one morning and I'll go and work on it. And then I'll abandon it for like 2 months and then go back again and continue. And then last month, my friends came and they were like, okay, stop playing. And they were like, what do you need to do? Let us make a plan. Let us write something down. Take your album picture. Do one thing, at least make one step. And I definitely think that I have had that. I have had that so much. Just the people that are pushing you. The Brazil Slam last year, I can't remember what happened, but okay, so I couldn't go to the airport. I couldn't. My friend got his friend's car to pick me up and take me to the airport, and then they were like, "Oh, that you're a Nigerian, so you can't board because of some issues like that." Apparently, people go there to take asylum, and they're like, "You needed to have gotten this document from so date, and so now that I didn't get it, you can't go." And my friends had somewhere to be, and they stayed outside that airport because they couldn't come in. The Mali Islam, there was no funding to go there. There was no funding to get a flight because the government did not have anything
funding
assigned to that. And it was my friends who were reaching out to people who were saying, "Oh, look at this person. She's representing Nigeria and she needs to go here, bring money." And one friend in particular, Smart, who just got like half of the ticket money from somebody else, which I still don't know how he did it to this day.
Yeah.
But they do that for me. They will come, they will shoot my videos, they will read my poetry, they will recommend me for an event or come with me to an event, or just I feel like my friends do too much for me, honestly, and I'm very grateful to have that support.
You both seem to have benefited a lot from your support system. It sure does take a village to hold up a good poet, to hold up poets doing what they do, even for every practice, but particularly for poetry. It can be a lonely and isolated journey. And so we're grateful to your friends for keeping you, because then you get to be here talking to us right here at the All African Women Poetry Podcast over or about your journey in poetry. I want to come back to both of you, and then before we narrow it down, you both have found a way to be friends. Were you friends before poetry found you? Did poetry find you and then you became friends? What did that look like, and how has, how like people usually are very isolated in this journey?
Yeah.
How have you navigated keeping, so first you tell me how the order in which it came, and how you both have navigated keeping that friendship, even doing pieces together and writing together. And so it can be a compact question, and how you both lean into each other's creative processes to create compact pieces.
Okay, so I
Anyone can go first.
I think I'll take just like how we became friends,
Right.
and then I think she'll take how we sustain it and work together. I
Amazing.
guess, does that work? So for a while, Debbie and I both grew up in Kaduna,
Okay.
right, the northern part of Nigeria, and we didn't really know each other that much. We were in a Christian fellowship group chat, so that made us interact from time to time. But I think just at some point in, I think 2020, 2021, we just started chatting a bit more and just became closer, right? Just as friends. And I think during that time, I had been, admiring Debbie, because she has been a poet longer than I have. Mm-hmm. So I've been admiring her work on like Instagram, social media, and all of that. And I just found this girl is so cool. Like this girl is so cool. And she made me feel like poetry was cool too, right? And so I would always ask her questions like about things when I got started, and she would always be very open about her own experiences, her own weaknesses. And I think that just even the shege that life has shown us has helped us, become friends, because like usually you need that shoulder to lean on, that person to talk to. So I think that has kind of been how we became friends, right?
On the sustaining it, I think that what I am learning to do is, so you're right about the journey being isolated in terms that even with a lot of young people our age that are doing poetry or anything, it's just a very
Cutthroat.
Yes, and everybody's on their own kind of thing. But I think that I see Moyo as a person rather than as, I see her as a poet, yes, but like I just see her as a person rather as somebody that is doing the same work that I'm doing. Better not come and collect my food. I just see her as a person, and I like experiencing this person. I like being with this person. So everything else just feels very, very secondary. I try my best, and I think that she does that too, to not lean into the scarcity mentality. It is a lot of people saying that about brands, really just, or people that want to hire poets, really just pitting everybody against each other,
Right.
because if this person is calling high price, at least this other person will reduce. And if they are fighting, then there's no union, there's nothing you can use. So yeah, just seeing her as a person and just being as Christ has asked us to be to people, to serve them, to be there for them, to love them. I think that really just goes over everything else first.
Talking about collecting food and putting people against prizes, has this journey been able to do that? Put food on the table, made it possible for you to say, I'm doing this full time? Has poetry done that yet for you?
I feel like sometimes, sometimes you're like,
You can bank on it.
yeah, the things, and then sometimes you're like, So I feel like, but honestly,
Okay.
I think the passion keeps you going, right? But it's true that sometimes it feels like there's enough in terms of material things from it, and other times you are not really sure. You are like, should I go into tech? I learn code.
And like, I also think that we're here in Ghana
Right.
because of poetry. So like that has to come.
So yeah.
The places poetry does take you.
Yeah.
I'd love to have this conversation and keep it going on and on, because you've been phenomenal and amazing to talk to. But in wrapping up, pretty much, what would you say to young poets who are looking at you and they are thinking, when would I also be able to get to the place where poetry takes me out of my homeland? When can I be able to tell a story about how poetry has put me in places that I didn't think otherwise I would make it to? And what do I do if I want to become like Debbie, if I want to become like Moyo? What do you have to say to anyone in that capacity?
You want to go?
Okay. I think that I would say, while it is important to have, like I was even saying yesterday, that it's professional. While it's important to have those people, you learn, I guess, across the way that you cannot set them as monuments for your own life of, oh, when I do this, I can be like this person, or when I become this person, I can be fulfilled or feel like I am a good poet or feel like I am an artist finally. I think you definitely might start out like that, but then along the way you realize that you are an entirely different person on an entirely different journey, and as much as their words matter and their words count, yours does too. So you must tell your own story. You must say it from your own mouth. You must not borrow somebody else's words, somebody else's life to say what you are trying to say, to be what you are trying to be. So yeah,
I think
That's a poem in itself.
right. I think that she said it all. The only thing I would add to that is hold on to God like mad. Like hold on to God for your mental health, for the sanctity and the hygiene of your soul. Just hold on to God, and I mean, take losses in stride as well. Like when you lose something, and you will lose. When you lose, when you lose, learn from that, move on. So yeah.
Phenomenal. Thank you so much, Deborah Johnson and Moyosola Olowukure. It's been amazing having this conversation with you. And as I listened to the conversation throughout, I guess this would be a good title to give to today's conversation with these amazing and good poets, to call it The Journey Between Sisters in Poetry.
Oh, I love that.
The journey between sisters in poetry?
Yeah.
Okay. So that happens to be what we call this episode. Thank you so much for experiencing this journey with us. My name has been Emma Ofosua, and this is the All African Women Poetry Podcast. We'll see you again in the next episode. Stay tuned and do like and share. Have a good day.
Tapon, actually infanti, means a paddle. So when I saw the name, I was really fascinated, because it's time also to use our language and symbols to represent ourselves.